Right now, somebody is handing over $18,000 for a diesel truck that will cost them $12,000 in repairs before the year is out. I know, because I see it every single week. The guy rolls in proud as can be, keys in hand, a diesel that is new to him sitting in my lot. And before I even pop the hood, I can tell by the year and the engine code exactly how that story ends. After 22 years of working on diesel trucks, I have rebuilt the same failing engines so many times I could do it blindfolded. And the frustrating part is this: every one of those owners could have avoided the nightmare if they just knew which years to stay away from. Today I am breaking down the 4 worst diesel truck years ever produced, and pairing each one with a bulletproof alternative you should buy instead. I am going deepest on the last pair, because that final recommendation is the one that will save you the most money. Let's get into it. Worst diesel number 4, the 2001 to 2004 Chevy and GMC 2500 HD and 3500 HD with the LB7 Duramax. This is the one that surprises people because the Duramax name carries a lot of weight, and it should. The Duramax platform, overall, is a solid engine family, but the first generation, the LB7, has a problem so expensive and so common that buying one without knowing about it is basically gambling with your savings account. The LB7 Duramax made around 300 horsepower and 520 pound-feet of torque when it launched. On paper, it was a revelation. GM partnered with Isuzu to build this thing, and it was smoother and quieter than anything Chevy had offered before. The problem was the fuel injectors. The LB7 uses Bosch injectors that sit underneath the valve covers, not on top of the engine where you can reach them in an afternoon. Underneath the valve covers, buried deep enough that replacing all 8 of them requires pulling the valve covers, the intake manifold, and a full day of labor even for a skilled tech. And these injectors fail a lot. They develop internal cracks, they leak fuel into the crankcase, and when they go, they do not go one at a time. You replace one, and 3 months later another one fails. The smart move is to replace all 8 at once, and that job runs $3,500 to $5,000 at an independent diesel shop. At a dealer, you are pushing $6,000 to $8,000 easily. I had a guy bring in a 2003 Silverado 2500 HD last year. He paid $14,000 for it privately. Beautiful truck, clean interior, 168,000 miles. Within 6 weeks, it was running rough, blowing white smoke and dumping fuel into the oil. Failed injectors. I quoted him $4,200 for all 8 with quality Bosch replacements. He stared at the floor for about 30 seconds and said, "That's a third of what I paid for the truck." He was not wrong. The other issue with the LB7 is the lack of a factory lift pump. These trucks rely on the injection pump to pull fuel all the way from the tank. That puts extra strain on the CP3 injection pump, and when fuel supply drops even slightly, it accelerates wear on everything downstream. An aftermarket lift pump is about $300 to $500 installed, but most used LB7 trucks still do not have one. If you are looking at an LB7, check for white smoke on startup, fuel smell in the oil, and rough idle. If the injectors have not been replaced and the truck has over 150,000 miles, budget for the job. It is not a question of if, it is when. The bulletproof alternative, the 2006 to 2007 Chevy and GMC 2500 HD and 3500 HD with the LBZ Duramax. If the LB7 is the Duramax to avoid, the LBZ is the one every diesel enthusiast fights over, and for good reason. The LBZ was the last Duramax built before the diesel particulate filter became mandatory. That means you get modern common rail fuel injection, strong power numbers, and none of the emissions headaches that plague later models. The LBZ makes 360 horsepower and 650 pound-feet of torque, paired with the Allison 1006 speed automatic. That transmission is an absolute tank. I have personally seen Allison transmissions behind LBZ engines go past 350,000 miles with nothing but fluid changes. GM reinforced the LBZ block with stronger main bearing caps, deeper cylinder bores, and forged steel connecting rods. It was built to handle abuse. The injector problems that plagued the LB7 were resolved. The overheating issues from the LLY were addressed. The LBZ is the sweet spot where GM had worked out most of the early problems but had not yet added the emissions equipment that created new ones. The only real weak point is the water pump, which uses a plastic impeller that can fail at higher mileage. That is a $400 to $600 repair. Compare that to $5,000 in injectors on the LB7 and you see why people pay a premium for these trucks. And they do pay a premium. A clean LBZ with 150,000 miles will still command $25,000 to $32,000, depending on the cab configuration and condition. That tells you everything about how the market values reliability. These trucks hold value because they do not break. If you find one with documented maintenance and no signs of heavy modification, buy it. You will not regret it. Worst diesel number 3, the 2003 to 2007 Ford F-250 and F-350 with a 6.0-liter Power Stroke. If you've spent more than 10 minutes researching diesel trucks, you've already heard about the 6.0, and everything you've heard is probably true. This engine has earned its reputation as one of the most problematic diesel engines Ford ever put into a truck, and I've seen the repair bills to prove it. The 6.0 Power Stroke was built by International Navistar for Ford. It made 325 horsepower and 570 pound-feet of torque, which was competitive for the era. But the engineering had critical design flaws that turned ownership into a recurring nightmare. The biggest killer is the EGR cooler. The 6.0 uses an exhaust gas recirculation system that routes hot exhaust gas through a cooler to bring down temperatures before sending it back into the intake. The problem is the cooler is prone to cracking internally. When it cracks, coolant leaks into the exhaust or the intake manifold. If you catch it early, you're looking at a $1,500 to $2,500 repair. If you don't catch it, the coolant gets into the cylinders, and you're dealing with a catastrophic engine failure. But it does not stop there. The oil cooler sits underneath the EGR cooler. When the oil cooler gets clogged, and it does because of the restrictive design, it starves the EGR cooler of coolant flow, so the EGR cooler overheats and fails. It's a cascade. One failure leads to the next, and before you know it, you're looking at head gaskets. Head gasket failure on the 6.0 is not like a head gasket failure on a gas engine. The 6.0 uses torque to yield head bolts that stretch permanently during installation. When head gaskets blow, which happens frequently under high exhaust gas temperatures, the fix requires ARP head studs, new gaskets, and lifting the cab off the frame to access the engine. That job runs $4,000 to $7,000 at an independent shop. I had a regular customer, a contractor who used a 2005 F-350 as his work truck. In 18 months, he spent $11,400 on EGR cooler replacement, head studs, new head gaskets, and an oil cooler upgrade. He loved the truck. He just couldn't afford to keep loving it. He eventually sold it and bought a 7.3, which brings me to the alternative. The bulletproof alternative. The 1999 to 2003 Ford F-250 and F-350 with a 7.3-liter Power Stroke. The 7.3-liter Power Stroke is the diesel engine that refuses to die. It is the engine that mechanics recommend to their own families. And it is the reason Ford Super Duty trucks from this era are still on the road at 400,000 and 500,000 miles with original engines and transmissions. The 7.3-liter engine was also built by International Navistar, and it came from a completely different era of diesel design. No exhaust gas recirculation system, no diesel particulate filter, no variable geometry turbo with vanes that stick. It uses a hydraulic electronic unit injection system that is powered by engine oil pressure. It is simple, effective, and when maintained properly, it is about as close to indestructible as a diesel engine gets. The 7.3 made about 275 horsepower and 525 pound-feet of torque in its final years. That is not going to win any drag races, but it is more than enough for towing and daily duty. And because the engine does not make extreme power, everything is understressed. The turbo does not work as hard. The head gaskets do not see the same pressures. The injectors fire less frequently per cycle than modern common rail systems, so they last longer. Maintenance on a 7.3 is straightforward. Oil changes, fuel filters, and the occasional CPS sensor are routine. CPS means camshaft position sensor. It is a $25 part and a 15-minute job. If the truck will not start or stalls randomly, it is almost always the CPS. I keep extras in my toolbox. A clean Super Duty from 1999 to 2003 with the 7.3 and 150,000 to 200,000 miles runs about $15,000 to $25,000 depending on condition and cab configuration. That is real money for a 20-plus-year-old truck, and people are paying it because the alternative is spending $8,000 to bulletproof a 6.0 that might still leave them stranded. If you find a 7.3 with service records and no rust, that truck will outlast your mortgage. Worst diesel number 2, the 2008 to 2010 Ford F-250 and F-350 with the 6.4-liter Power Stroke. If the 6.0 is a headache, the 6.4 is a full-blown migraine. Ford replaced the 6.0 with the 6.4, hoping to fix the reliability issues, and in some ways, they made things worse. The 6.4 Power Stroke was the last diesel Ford outsourced to International Navistar, and it only lasted 3 model years. That should tell you something right there. The 6.4 made 350 horsepower and 650 pound-feet of torque from a compound twin-turbo setup. Impressive numbers, terrible execution. The biggest problem is the diesel particulate filter, the DPF. The 6.4 was Ford's first diesel with a DPF system, and the regeneration process, where the truck injects extra fuel to burn off soot in the filter, dumps raw diesel into the engine oil. Over time, the oil level actually rises on the dipstick because it is being diluted with fuel. That fuel dilution breaks down the oil's ability to lubricate, and once that happens, internal engine wear accelerates dramatically. Then there are the pistons. The 6.4 uses pistons with a thin lip on the crown that is prone to cracking under high cylinder pressure. When a piston cracks, metal fragments go everywhere, into the oil, into the cylinders, into the turbo. You are not repairing that. You are replacing the engine. An engine replacement on a 6.4 runs $16,000 to $20,000 with labor. The radiator is another common failure point. The plastic end tanks crack, coolant leaks, and if you don't catch it immediately, the engine overheats and you are right back to head gasket territory. Head gasket repair on the 6.4 costs $3,000 to $7,000 because, like the 6.0, you have to lift the cab to access most engine components. I tell everyone the same thing. If someone offers you a great deal on a 6.4 Power Stroke, there is a reason the price is low. Walk away. The cheapest 6.4 is the one you never buy. The bulletproof alternative, the 2015 to 2019 Ford F-250 and F-350 with the 6.7-liter Power Stroke. After the disaster of the 6.0 and the 6.4, Ford did something smart. They stopped outsourcing their diesel engine and built it in-house. The 6.7-liter Power Stroke was Ford's redemption, and by the 2015 to 2019 model years, they had refined it into one of the most reliable modern diesel engines on the market. The 6.7 in this generation makes 440 horsepower and 860 pound-feet of torque, paired with the Torque Shift 6-speed automatic. That combination has proven itself in commercial fleets across the country, with many of these trucks exceeding 300,000 miles on original engines and transmissions with nothing but scheduled maintenance. Ford addressed nearly every flaw from the 6.0 and the 6.4. The EGR system was redesigned. The fuel system uses a Bosch CP4 injection pump, and while early CP4 units had some failure concerns, the 2015 and later models saw significant improvements. The exhaust system handles DPF regeneration far more smoothly than the 6.4 ever did, and fuel dilution is no longer the ticking time bomb it was. The best part? Unlike the cab-off nightmare of the 6.0 and 6.4, Ford designed the 6.7 so that most major components can be serviced without lifting the cab. That saves hours of labor, which translates directly to lower repair costs. A 2017 F-250 with the 6.7 and 100,000 miles runs about $35,000 to $45,000. That's a lot of money, yes, but compare the total cost of ownership over 200,000 miles to a 6.4 that might need an engine replacement at 120,000 miles, and the math isn't even close. You'll spend less on maintenance over the life of a 6.7 than you'll spend on a single catastrophic repair on a 6.4. Worst diesel, number 1, the 2007.5 to 2009 Dodge Ram 2500 and 3500 models with the early 6.7-liter Cummins. This one is going to upset some people because the Cummins name is sacred in the diesel world. And look, I get it. Cummins engines have earned that reputation over decades, but the first 2 years of the 6.7-liter Cummins in the Ram were rough, and pretending otherwise does a disservice to anyone shopping for a used truck. The 6.7-liter Cummins debuted in the 2007.5 model year as a replacement for the legendary 5.9-liter. It brought more power, a variable geometry turbocharger, and the first full suite of emissions equipment Cummins had ever been asked to integrate into a pickup truck. That emission system is where the trouble lives. The early 6.7-liter Cummins trucks used a diesel particulate filter that clogged frequently, especially in trucks used for short trips or light-duty driving, where the diesel particulate filter could not complete its regeneration cycle. When the diesel particulate filter clogs, the truck goes into limp mode. That means reduced power, warning lights, and a trip to the shop. Diesel particulate filter cleaning runs $500 to $800. Replacement runs $2,000 to $3,000. The variable geometry turbo in these early models is another sore spot. The sliding vanes that control exhaust flow can stick from soot buildup, causing poor turbo response, excessive smoke, and reduced power. Turbo replacement on a 6.7-liter Cummins runs $2,500 to $4,000, depending on whether you go OEM or aftermarket. And here's the detail that catches people off guard. The factory powertrain warranty covers mechanical components up to 100,000 miles, but emissions equipment is only covered to about 50,000 miles. So that $3,000 DPF replacement at 65,000 miles, that's on you. I've seen 2008 Rams come in with under 100,000 miles needing turbo work, DPF replacement, and EGR cleaning all in the same visit. One customer spent $6,800 in a single trip. He came in expecting an oil change. The engine block itself is solid. The bottom end of the 6.7-liter is Cummins through and through, an inline 6 with massive bearings and thick cylinder walls. It's the emissions equipment bolted onto it, and the first-year growing pains that create the financial pain. The bulletproof alternative, the Dodge Ram 2500 and 3500 from 1994 to 1998 with the 5.9-liter Cummins 12-valve. And here's the one I saved for last, because it is the diesel truck I recommend more than any other to people who want maximum reliability at the lowest possible total cost of ownership. The second-generation Dodge Ram with the 5.9-liter Cummins 12-valve, specifically the trucks with the P7100 Bosch injection pump is the most mechanically reliable diesel truck ever mass-produced for the consumer market. I do not say that lightly. I say it because I have watched these trucks run for decades with nothing but basic maintenance. The 12-valve 5.9-liter Cummins is a mechanical engine. No computer-controlled injection, no exhaust gas recirculation system, no diesel particulate filter, no diesel exhaust fluid, and no variable geometry turbocharger. Just a cast-iron inline-six with a fixed geometry turbocharger and a mechanical injection pump that delivers fuel with brutal simplicity. It made between 160 and 215 horsepower depending on the year, and 440 pound-feet of torque that hits you low and stays flat across the RPM range. I have a customer right now running a 1997 Ram 2500 with 487,000 miles on the original engine, original bottom end, original head. He has replaced the water pump, the lift pump, and done regular oil changes with Rotella. That is it. The truck starts every single morning, pulls a 24-foot flatbed trailer 3 times a week, and just refuses to quit. The P7100 injection pump on these trucks is a legend in itself. It is a mechanical unit that can be rebuilt almost indefinitely, and diesel shops across the country know how to work on them. Parts are available. Knowledge is abundant. There is no proprietary computer code. You need a $5,000 dealer scan tool to access. Here is the real math on these trucks. A clean Dodge Ram 2500 from 1994 to 1998 with a 12-valve and a manual transmission runs about $15,000 to $25,000 right now, depending on rust, mileage, and condition. Automatics are cheaper because the 47RE transmission behind these engines is the one weak point. It was not designed for the torque the Cummins produces, and it can fail. If you are looking at an automatic, budget $2,000 to $3,000 for a rebuild down the road, or find one that has already been done. But if you find a manual, a 5-speed NV4500 behind a 12-valve Cummins, that is the holy grail. That transmission is nearly as tough as the engine. I have seen them go 400,000 miles without being opened. When you're inspecting one of these, check for rust first. These are 25 to 30-year-old trucks. Rust is the biggest enemy, not the engine. Check the frame rails, the cab corners, and the bed floor. Second, look at the killer dowel pin situation. There is a steel dowel pin in the timing gear case that can vibrate loose over time and fall into the timing gears. If it falls, it destroys the engine. The fix is a $50 pin and an hour of preventive labor. If it has not been addressed, do it immediately after purchase. Third, check the lift pump. These trucks use a mechanical lift pump that can weaken over time. A weak lift pump starves the injection pump of fuel, which causes premature wear. An aftermarket electric lift pump is $200 to $400 and is the single best upgrade you can make. Who should buy this truck? Anyone who wants a diesel that runs on simple maintenance, produces serious torque, and will outlast everything else in their driveway. Anyone who tows regularly and wants something that just works without warning lights and regeneration cycles. And anyone who is smart enough to understand that a 30-year-old truck with 200,000 miles on a Cummins is barely broken in. Who should skip it? If you need modern creature comforts, heated seats, a touchscreen, and adaptive cruise control, this is not your truck. The interior is basic. The ride is rough. It drives like a piece of heavy equipment because that is essentially what it is. If you live in the Rust Belt and cannot find one that has been undercoated or garage kept, the body will quit before the engine ever will. And if you are not comfortable doing basic maintenance yourself or do not have a trusted diesel mechanic, stick with something newer. These trucks reward hands-on owners. Here's my final take. The diesel truck market is full of expensive mistakes disguised as good deals. A cheap 6.0 Power Stroke isn't cheap. A low-mileage 6.4 isn't low risk. An early 6.7 Cummins isn't automatically bulletproof just because it says Cummins on the valve cover. And an LB7 Duramax with original injectors at 170,000 miles is a repair bill waiting to happen. But a 7.3 Power Stroke with records? That's a truck that will work for a living. An LBZ Duramax with an Allison behind it? That's the diesel truck people will be fighting over for the next 20 years. A 2015 to 2019 6.7 Power Stroke? That's Ford finally getting it right. And a 12-valve Cummins with a manual transmission? That's the closest thing to a forever truck you will ever find. You now know which 4 diesel years to run from and which 4 to run toward. Next time you see a 6.4 Power Stroke priced $8,000 under market, you'll understand exactly why, and you'll keep driving. If this kind of straight talk helps, hit subscribe. I've got more videos coming on the diesel trucks that actually hold up versus the ones dealers are desperate to move off their lots. Like if it helped, drive safe, take care of your truck, and it'll take care of you. Take it or leave it. I'll see you in the next one.